I am waiting right now for so many people.
You're understaffed.
Hundreds and hundreds of people. And then they'll say, why isn't Trump doing this faster? You can't do it faster because they're obstructing. They're obstructionists. So I have people, hundreds of people, that we're trying to get through. I mean, you see the backlog. We can't get them through. Yeah. And then the newspapers will say, Trump doesn't get them through. Well, it's nothing to do with me. Statutorily, you have to go through this process. So it's been a lousy process. It's taken a long time to get my cabinet done. And as you know, it's not even done now. This is record stuff. You know, we're talking about records in terms of time. And it's very sad. Well, you see even again with the Supreme Court judge that everybody agrees is outstanding. And you see what that process.
Absolutely, and the American people know it, I think.
I think they know it. I think they get it. I wish it would be explained better, the obstructionist nature, though, because a lot of times I'll say, well, why doesn't so-and-so have people under him or her? The reason is because we can't get them approved.
Well, people are still wondering, though, they're scratching their heads why so many Obama-era staffers are still here. For example, was it a mistake not to ask Jim Comey to step down from the FBI at the outset of your presidency? Is it too late now to ask him to step down?
No, it's not too late, but, you know, I have confidence in him. We'll see what happens. You know, it's going to be interesting, but, you know, we have to just, look, I have so many people that want to come into this administration. They're so excited about this administration and what's happening. Bankers, law enforcement people, everybody wants to come into this administration. Don't forget, when Jim Comey came out, he saved Hillary Clinton. People don't realize that. He saved her life because I call it Comey 1. And I joke about it a little bit. When he was reading those charges, she was guilty on every charge. And then he said she was essentially okay. Director
well, that's
Comey,
why I'm asking, why is he still in the job?
No, I'm just saying, well, because I want to give everybody a good, fair chance. Director Comey was very, very good to Hillary Clinton, that I can tell you. If he weren't, she would be right now going to trial.
Are you going to push that? Are you going to?
No, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about positive.
In the last weeks of the Obama presidency, he changed all the rules in terms of the intelligence agencies, allowing them to share raw data.
Terrible.
Why do you think he did this?
Well, I'm going to let you figure that one out, but it's so obvious. When you look at Susan Rice and what's going on, and so many people are coming up to me and apologizing now. They say, you know, you were right when you said that. Perhaps I didn't know how right I was because nobody knew the extent of it.
When you sent that infamous tweet, was that what you were referring to, the Susan Rice?
Well, sure. We're talking about surveillance. It was wiretapped in quotes. New York Times had the word wiretapped in the headline of the first edition. Then they took it out of there fast when they realized. But I put wiretapped in quotes, meaning, because look, wiretapping's an old-fashioned thing. There aren't too many wires anymore. Okay? You don't have a lot of wires. Look at this room. This room used to have a lot of wires. Now it doesn't have so many wires. But we talked about surveillance or whatever, and you look at the extent of the surveillance. Me and so many other people, it's terrible.
She said she didn't do it for political reasons. Susan Rice told Andrea Mitchell.
Does anybody really believe that? Nobody believes that. Even the people that try to protect her in the news media. It's such a big story, and I'm sure it will continue forward. But what they did is horrible. You know, we talk the chemicals because, you know, people just don't see this, the level of brutality, the level of viciousness. But when they drop barrel bombs and bombs of any kind right on top of a civilian population, that's the worst thing. I've never seen anything like it. And frankly, Putin is backing a person that's truly an evil person. And I think it's very bad for Russia. I think it's very bad for mankind. It's very bad for this world.
What are we doing right now in terms of North Korea?
You never know, do you? You never know.
That's all you're going to say.
You know, I don't talk about the military.
Yes.
I'm not like Obama, where they talk about in 4 months we're going to hit Mosul. And in the meantime, they get ready, and like you never saw. Look, they're still fighting. Mosul was supposed to last for a week, and now they've been fighting it for many months, and so many more people died. I don't want to talk about it. We are sending an armada, very powerful. We have submarines, very powerful, far more powerful than the aircraft carrier, that I can tell you. And we have the best military people on earth. And I will say this, he is doing the wrong thing.
Do you think he's mentally fit?
I don't know. I don't know him, but he's doing the wrong thing. think we're doing very well on health care. It's been very much misreported that we failed with health care. We haven't failed. We're negotiating, and we continue to negotiate, and we will save perhaps $900 billion. You know, if you look at the kind of numbers that we're talking about, that's all going back into the taxes, and we have to do health care first to pick up additional money so that we get great tax reform. So we're going to have a phenomenal tax reform, but I have to do health care first. I want to do it first to really do it right. Healthcare has been going along. You know, it's a negotiation, so I do. And it's just a negotiation, and it's going to take a little while longer, but as you're probably hearing, Congress is coming along. We have some great people at Congress. They want it to happen. We will have no Democrats, zero. That means we have to get close to 100% of the Republicans. Not an easy way to run a government. You saw that with Justice Gorsuch, we're very proud of. But he had almost no Democrat support, even though he was central casting like the perfect Supreme Court judge. So we'll see what happens. I think we're doing very well with health care, which surprises. That's like breaking news, but they all know it. They just don't tend to write it. And after that, we're going to start on tax reform and infrastructure.
But do you have to do health care before tax reform? I mean,
Yes.
when I speak with business managers, they say tax reform is so much more impactful to moving the needle on economic growth.
They're
so why
all
do you...
right, but because I'm saving a tremendous amount, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars we're saving on health care. So we're going to have a much better plan than Obamacare, which is failing. Even now, as I came in here, they're saying payments have to be made that weren't scheduled to be made on Obamacare. If you don't make them, it fails. I mean, you know, it's just a mess. Obamacare is a total mess. So we're saving tremendous amounts of money on health care when we get this done. Number one, and most importantly, actually, we're going to have great health care, and all of that saving goes into the tax. If you don't do that, you can't put any of the savings into the tax cuts and the tax reform.
How do you know you're not going to have a similar battle on the tax reform debate? Because you've got a border adjustment tax, the deductions. So who's to say that tax reform doesn't fail the way the House bill failed?
I think tax reform will be easier, but it's going to be tough. You have a lot of people out there that, you know, they have their own agendas, including a lot of supporters of different people that are in Congress. They have their own agendas. They want certain things. Tax reform is going to be tough, but it won't be as tough as healthcare. Healthcare is very, very difficult. You look at that. Look at Hillary Clinton, that failed, and you look at so many of the others, and Obamacare failed. Obamacare was just, you know, they just in the end just gave up just to get the vote. You look at what they had to do in Nebraska, where they essentially gave it away for Nebraska to get that final vote.
And we know the premiums up 116% in Arizona and across the country.
And many of the, and this is going to be a much worse year than last year for Obamacare. So Obamacare is a disaster. It's really gone. Essentially, it's gone. If Obamacare isn't bailed out almost on a monthly basis, it fails. It immediately fails. We have a great health care plan that I think will happen. And if it happens, then I go immediately to tax reform, and that will happen. That will be easier than health care.
How are you on the border adjustment tax? Have you decided?
I haven't really wanted to talk about it. I have my own feelings. I don't like the word adjustment because our country gets taken advantage of, to use a nice term, by every other country in the world. So when I hear border adjustment means we lose. We lose. So I don't like the term border adjustment.
Any tax at the border?
Let's call it an import tax. Let's call it a reciprocal tax. You know, we have.
So it's in there. You want it in there?
We have countries, Marie, that charge us, our companies, 100% tax if they sell a motorcycle, or if they make it in America, they make it in the United States, they sell it to various countries. They sell very little because the tax is 100% in some countries. The tax is 50%, 30%, 40%. But if they make a motorcycle and they sell it back into the United States, they have no tax. Now, do you think that's fair? And do you think that's smart? So I love the idea of reciprocal. You can call it a reciprocal or a matching tax or a mirror tax. There are numerous terms, but the reciprocal tax is very important. And you know, the funny thing is that nobody gets angry when you say reciprocal tax. When you say we're going to charge a border tax, would be a rich nation if we did it, by the way, but you know.
It sounds even,
nobody
reciprocal.
Cares. But when you say reciprocal, nobody fights you. When you say I'm going to charge a 10% or a 20% border tax, everyone goes crazy because they like free trade. Well, they don't say that the other countries are charging you much more than that. But when you say a reciprocal tax, and I'm not saying that's what I'm doing, but there has to be a certain reciprocal nature to it. But when you say reciprocal tax, nobody can get angry. Even the other countries, if like they're charging you a 50% tax, you say, okay, whatever you charge, we're charging.
Like China and India.
They may not like it, but they can't get angry because they can't win that battle.
What if you have a debate, you can't get to an agreement on that? Do you prefer just cutting taxes? If you had to do one, can you do just corporate tax
well, we
cuts?
could keep trade and we could keep certain things separate. We may put it in the tax bill or we may keep it separate. We have a lot of different things. Don't forget, we're going to be bringing back as part of this, I think the number is closer to $5 trillion. You know, you keep using it, $2.5 trillion, right? But the money, the corporate inversions, and the money over there is $2.5 trillion. So I think that money, because we've been saying that number for what, 5 years now, would you say? So I know it's much more. It's probably $5 trillion or $4 trillion. That money's coming back. We're going to charge a very small tax on that money. And the companies are going to bring that money back into the United States and do lots of good things with it. Right now, they can't bring it back. And it's not only the high tax, it's also because the bureaucracy is so horrible. I have friends that want to bring money back, even if they were willing to pay the tax, which very few people are willing. The bureaucracy, the paperwork, the work to get it in, it's not worth it.
Which is why you're rolling back through your executive orders, you're rolling back regulations. So if you had to do one, corporate tax or individual tax, what's more important if you had to do one this year?
Both. I almost think individual from my standpoint because, you know, the middle class has just been taken advantage of in this country for so many years. But in terms of jobs, I mean, I think both, but I think probably corporate. But they're going to both go hand in hand. It's not going to matter.
Have you moved off of this soft deadline that your team put in place of August to get this done? Are you looking at the later in the year? Well,
you know, I put a deadline on health care. And the fake news immediately went crazy because when I didn't make the deadline, although I was just negotiating, don't forget, I said withdraw. I didn't even say take a vote. I say withdraw. Well, that same thing is being negotiated, and great points are being won and lost, but great points are being won that are going to lower premiums and make our health care incredible. But by putting a deadline, they say, oh, Trump didn't make it, he didn't make it. So I don't want to put deadlines. Healthcare is going to happen at some point. Now, if it doesn't happen fast enough, I'll start the taxes. But the tax reform and the tax cuts are better if I can do healthcare first.
What about infrastructure? How do you see it?
100%.
When do you see it?
Very soon. I see it as part, perhaps, of the healthcare plan because phase 2 of the healthcare plan, in order to get the votes, I need 60% for that. And if I put that in, the Democrats are actually going to love the infrastructure plan. So we're going to actually, I believe, despite their tremendous hostility for years, this isn't just for Trump. This is for years. It's been so hostile. You know, Marie, when I used to come to Washington, because I've been a very political person all my life, even though I'm not on this side of the equation, but I've been very, very political. I used to see Democrats and Republicans. They were best friends. And they'd fight a little bit during the day, and then they'd have dinner with their families at night. You'd see them at restaurants. I used to joke, look at this, and, you know, a Republican.
They would have a coffee together.
Yeah, they'd be together. They'd have breakfast together. Then they go and fight, and then they have lunch. Today, you don't see that. The level of hatred is incredible. And I'm not just saying in the last 90 days. I'm saying this has been for the last few years. It's incredibly divisive.
Has it gotten in the way of getting things done?
Well, as an example, on health care, I won't get one Democrat vote, even though many of them think it's an incredible plan. Take a look at Justice Gorsuch. You can't get better. Top of the line in every aspect. And he got 3 votes from the Democrats. Should have gotten all of them, got 3 votes. And those 3 people, you know, are to be respected for doing it. But there's a great level of hostility, and they're putting their hatred way above the country and the benefit to the country that, you know, things that they do can have such benefit. So I always assume no Democrat votes. Now, the good thing is we have the House, we have the Senate, and we have the White House. So we're all set. But within there, you have certain factions. You have the conservative Republicans, you have the moderate Republicans, you know, you have to get them together. But we need close to 100%. That's a pretty hard thing to get, but we get it. From the standpoint of business, look at the optimism charts. Look at manufacturers, 93%, the highest it's ever been. The optimism of manufacturers.
The sentiment has changed.
We have never, ever had the optimism that we have now over the last 90 days or since the Trump election. So, and you see the stock market. I mean, we've picked up $3 trillion in value. We have thousands of jobs all across the country. Look at what's going on in Michigan with the expansion of the plants by Ford, by General Motors. Yesterday, Toyota announced that they're going to spend $1.3 to $1.9 billion in Kentucky and different things. I mean, the car industry is not going to leave us anymore. Believe me, the car industry is staying in our country. They were leaving. If I didn't win this election, you would have lost your car industry to Mexico and to other countries. They're not leaving anymore. Believe me, there's retribution if they leave. There was no retribution. They'd leave, they'd sell their cars in, they'd fire all our people. Now there's retribution, and they understand that. Now, at the same time, I'm going to treat them great. But we want them to expand their plants and build new plants, and that's what they're doing. Well, they were 100%. In fact, we had hundreds of bidders. We have many, many designs. I've seen 10 of the top, but I want to see more. And what I'm doing is I said to our very great secretary, he's really doing a great job, General Kelly, because you see the numbers where they're down 68%. Nobody's ever seen numbers. It's like a record. In fact, people aren't even trying to get through anymore because they know they can't.
It's incredible.
It's incredible what's happened. But on the wall, we're looking at designs, and we're going to be making a decision very shortly. Just so you understand, we're not going into Syria. But when I see people using horrible, horrible chemical weapons, which they agreed not to use under the Obama administration, but they violated it.
They said they got rid of them.
Hey, look, what I did should have been done by the Obama administration a long time before I did it. And you would have had a much better, I think Syria would be a lot better off right now than it has been.
Obama pushed, he resisted doing it.
When I looked, he didn't do it. I don't know what happened, but he didn't do it. And in fact, they had a big attack right after he drew the red line in the sand. They had a very big attack, and everybody waited, what's going on, and nothing happened. And even the Obama people admitted he was wrong for not doing it. I will tell you that when I looked at the pictures on any show or any newspaper, but especially when you see them on television, and you see these beautiful kids that are dead in their father's arms, or you see kids gasping for life, and you know it's over for them. They're hosing them down, hundreds of them. When you see that, I immediately called General Mattis. I said, what can we do? And they came back with a number of different alternatives, and we hit them very hard. Now, are we going to get involved with Syria? No. But if I see them using gas and using things that, I mean, even some of the worst tyrants in the world didn't use the kind of gases that they used. And some of the gases are unbelievably potent. So when I saw that, I said, we have to do something. You should have peace in Syria. It's enough. And frankly, we talk the chemicals because, people just don't see this, the level of brutality, the level of viciousness. But when they drop barrel bombs and bombs of any kind right on top of a civilian population, that's the worst thing. I've never seen anything like it. And frankly, Putin is backing a person that's truly an evil person. And I think it's very bad for Russia. I think it's very bad for mankind. It's very bad for this world. But when you drop gas or bombs or barrel bombs, they have these massive barrels with dynamite, and they drop them right in the middle of a group of people. And in all fairness, you see the same kids, no arms, no legs, no face. This is an animal. And I really think that there's going to be a lot of pressure on Russia to make sure that peace happens. Because frankly, if Russia didn't go in and back this animal, you wouldn't have a problem right now. He was going to be overthrown. I thought he was gone. He had another week. I mean, he was finished. He had nothing. And then Russia came in and saved him. And then Obama made one of the worst deals in history with the Iran deal. So you really have Iran, and you have Russia, and you have Assad. You
redirected Navy ships to go toward the Korean Peninsula. What are we doing right now in terms of North Korea? You never know, do you? You never know. That's all you're going to say. I don't talk about the military. Yes. I'm not like Obama, where they talk about in 4 months we're going to hit Mosul. And in the meantime, they get ready, and like you never saw, look, they're still fighting. Mosul was supposed to last for a week, and now they've been fighting it for many months, and so many more people died. I don't want to talk about it. We are sending an armada, very powerful. We have submarines.
very powerful, far more powerful than the aircraft carrier, that I can tell you. And we have the best military people on earth. And I will say this, he is doing the wrong thing. He's making a big mistake.
Do you think he's mentally fit?
I don't know. I don't know him, but he's doing the wrong thing. I had a very, very good meeting with President Xi of China. Really liked him. We had a great chemistry, I think. I mean, at least I had a great chemistry. Maybe he didn't like me, but I think he liked me. We were going to have a 10 or 15 minute sit down. It lasted for 3 hours. Then the next day it was another schedule, because everything's very orderly with the Chinese, frankly. And we had meetings scheduled. Well, the 15 minutes on the first day lasted for 3 hours. The 15 minutes on the second day lasted for 2 hours, just one-on-one, the two of us with interpreters. And I mean, we understand each other. I think he's, a person that I got along with really well. We had a good chemistry.
Did he give you any suggestion that he would help with North Korea? Did you get into trade and currency?
First thing I brought up was North Korea. He said, you got to help us with North Korea, because we can't allow it, and it's no good for you. And you have a tremendous power because of trade. Now, he then explains thousands of years of history with Korea. Not that easy. In other words, not as simple as people would think. They've had tremendous conflict with Korea over the years. Now, his father was in China 4 times. He was never in China. So I said, look, you have a tremendous power because of trading through the border. They don't get food, they don't get, they can't sell their coal. In fact, I hear today 2 massive coal ships from North Korea were sent back to North Korea, heading to China. They were sent back, which is a very good sign. But I think China can help us. I hope China can help us. We talked about trade, and I can tell you China will do much better on trade if they help us with North Korea.
And you think he knows that?
I think he knows that. I told him that, yeah.
When you were with the president of China, you're launching these military strikes. Was that planned? How did that come about, that it's happening right then? Because right there you're saying, a reminder, here's who the superpower in the world is. You
have no idea how many people want to hear the answer to this. I have watched speculation for 3 days now on what that was like.
When did you tell him?
But I'll tell you.
Before dessert?
But I will tell you. Only because you've treated me so good for so long, I have to tell you, right? I was sitting at the table. We had finished dinner. We're now having dessert. And we had the most beautiful piece of chocolate cake that you've ever seen. And President Xi was enjoying it. And I was given the message from the generals that the ships are locked and loaded. What do you do? And we made a determination to do it. So the missiles were on the way. And I said, Mr. President, let me explain something to you. This is during dessert. We've just fired 59 missiles, all of which hit, by the way, unbelievable, from hundreds of miles away, all of which hit. Amazing.
Unmanned. Brilliant.
It's so incredible. It's brilliant. It's genius. Our technology, our equipment is better than anybody by a factor of 5. I mean, what we have in terms of technology, nobody can even come close to competing. Now, we're going to start getting it because, the military has been cut back and depleted so badly by the past administration and by the war in Iraq, which was another disaster. So what happens is, I said, we've just launched 59 missiles heading to Iraq.
Well, you headed to Syria?
Yes, heading toward Syria. And I want you to know that. Because I didn't want him to go home. We're almost finished. It was a full day in Palm Beach. We're almost finished. And what does he do? Finishes dessert and go home. And then they say, the guy you just had dinner with just attacked the country.
How did he react?
So he paused for 10 seconds. And then he asked the interpreter to please say it again. I didn't think that was a good sign. And he said to me, anybody that uses gases, you could almost say, or anything else, but anybody that was so brutal and uses gases, to do that to young children and babies, it's okay.
He agreed.
He was okay with it. He was okay. But we got along. There was a great feeling, I think, between both of us. Now, we have 2 very different countries, 2 very different peoples, but I think he understood the message, and I understood what he was saying to me.